Hello, everyone, and thank you for viewing my presentation on Bill Wilson and the creation of Alcoholics Anonymous, or better known as AA. So, who was Bill Wilson? His original birth name was William Griffith Wilson, and the nickname Bill stemmed from the foundational principle of anonymity and informality with Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill was born on November 26, 1894, in East Dorset, Vermont, in a room behind a bar. Now, growing up, there was a concern with a history of alcohol abuse in his family, especially with his grandfather, who was a serious drinker but did not actually consider himself to be an alcoholic. Moving into Bill's youth and young adulthood, Bill excelled at Burr and Burton Academy as class president, baseball captain, and first chair violinist for the school symphony. Following Bill's senior year, a very close companion and somebody that Bill really loved while he was in high school died, leaving Bill with severe depression. Concluding his time at Burr and Burton, Bill enrolled in a military college, Norwich University, where he focused on engineering and preparing for World War I. In 1913, Bill met his wife, Lois Bunham, and in 1917, Bill joined the United States Army Coast Artillery Corps, where he trained in New York and Virginia before becoming a second lieutenant. While awaiting deployment in England, Bill visited Winchester Cathedral, which is pictured on the right, and experienced a profound spiritual moment, having said, "Sense the overwhelming presence of God." After discharge, Bill worked at a Surrey company and began law school at Brooklyn Law before becoming a successful Wall Street analyst. By the late 1920s, however, Bill's alcoholism had derailed his career and his education. Bill and Lois had to move into Lois's childhood home as their financial instability worsened. A visit from Bill's friend Ebby inspired Bill to consider a higher power and begin his spiritual journey towards recovery. Ebby's visit sparked the possibility of recovery for Bill. Bill then admitted to Towns Hospital on Central Park West in Manhattan, where he met psychiatrist William D. Silkworth. Silkworth believed that alcoholism was a physical allergy to alcohol, as he said, and not a moral failure. Excuse me. This physical allergy, triggered by the consumption of even the smallest amount of alcohol, caused compulsion to drink, paired with this mental obsession to do so. Following his newfound sobriety, Bill and some friends found a small company and moved to Akron, Ohio. Bill believed that this was his way to remedy his financial situation. Bill then met Doctor Bob in Akron, Ohio, where together they helped others achieve sobriety. So, some of the psychological and social factors that led up to Bill's alcoholism, of course, included his family history of alcohol abuse, especially with his grandfather, who was a heavy drinker, early depression and anxiety, which kind of stemmed in Bill's youth, this need and notion for perfectionism in everything that Bill did when it came to his education, his professional career, and his time in the military. Speaking of the military, specific military drinking culture, the Wall Street lifestyle, and of course, the inevitable stock market crash of the 1930s. So, with Bill's development through alcohol abuse and early recovery, what are some theories and contributions that we can see? Well, with help from Dr. William D. Silkworth and Dr. Bob, we can see a whole host of concepts and theories with AA that I'll kind of go through briefly here. So, the first and the most prominent one that we can see is alcohol abuse as a physical disease, right? As Dr. Silkworth said, alcoholism is this physical allergy that is sparked with even the smallest amount of alcohol. So we're moving from alcohol abuse to a moral failure, from being a moral failure to it being more of a physical disease. Second, we see this heavy emphasis on spirituality as a means to achieving recovery and maintaining sobriety as well, right? People are often they're encouraged to have this sort of spiritual awakening in which they find this new path of spirituality to kind of guide them through their journey through recovery and maintaining sobriety. And also, we can see some peer support and mutual aid, where people who are actively in recovery together form a community that fosters honesty, integrity, and accountability. The Big Book, created in 1939 as co-authored by Dr. Silkworth and Bill, is kind of the framework, this foundational text for Alcoholics Anonymous that tells the story of how men and women have recovered from alcohol abuse. Right? It's kind of like the holy grail of Alcoholics Anonymous, and later the 12-step programs. As mentioned in the previous slide, there is also a heavy emphasis on this kind of spiritual transformation and spirituality aspect to recovery and maintaining sobriety. So in this instance, those who are in recovery see Alcoholics Anonymous as a spiritual and not strictly religious group, right? It encourages members to reference a higher power to make their own interpretation of what that may look like without actually prescribing it to be a part of a specific religious denomination. And so we can also see this with these excerpts from the 12 steps in which they're essentially prescribing they that this physical ailment is something that is unmanageable to just the single individual and thus requires some sort of higher power to assist them in maintaining it and treating it. Finally, some of the last contributions of AA that we can see are the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. The 12 steps, which was co-developed by Dr. Bob Smith and Bill, is a spiritual and practical framework for recovery, as pictured in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. The 12 steps emphasize on admitting powerlessness over weakness. It symbolizes asking for help, leaning on others, and relying on supportive systems, not only as those navigating through recovery, but also as they maintain sobriety as well. And it's also admitting that you are living with a physical disease. So with the 12 steps, we can also see that kind of clear dualistic pattern between alcoholism as a physical disease and not a moral failure. On the other hand, the 12 traditions are the foundational guidelines for the AA group, right? So the 12 traditions are essential foundational understanding of how the group functions, ensuring anonymity, humility, service, and compassion, assisting those in recovery achieve sobriety. And this also helped grow AA into a global fellowship. So the 12 steps and the 12 traditions are more widely known, and this is kind of what pushed out the message for AA. Some of the strengths and weaknesses that we can see with Bill's contribution to AA, of course, is a heavy peer-led model that empowers individuals, right? This peer-led mutual aid community emphasizes accountability and community among those who are in recovery. And of course, with some of the weaknesses, we see that this spiritual emphasis may not resonate with all who are in recovery. In this one-size-fits-all model, the support may overlook individual and cultural needs. Ultimately, the principles and practices of Alcoholics Anonymous offer several meaningful applications within the field of social work. These include fostering a peer-based recovery support, promoting client empowerment through shared lived experience and accountability, and reinforcing the value of mutual aid. AA's emphasis on personal responsibility, spiritual growth, and ongoing reflection aligns with many core social work values, particularly in the areas of substance use recovery, trauma-informed care, and systems-informed interventions. Integrating AA's frameworks into social work practice can enhance culturally responsive engagement, strengthen recovery-oriented service delivery, and support holistic approaches to client well-being.